Hello everyone, it's Dave the Cat here, and today I'm gonna share a very special story with you. A story that my father, Egil Forsen, cooked up a few years ago. And the story is called Dave the Cat and the Magic Burgundy Sack. I hope you enjoy! The story begins with a man trying to jump into a pair of trousers. Being all confused, I asked the man, "What are you doing?" So he explained that how was he supposed to get into them if he doesn't jump into them? I thought he was a very strange man indeed, but I assisted him and I helped him put his trousers back on, and he was so grateful he agreed to come for a walk with me. Whilst we were walking, he started telling me this fantastic story about a nearby tower, and inside this tower is apparently a magical box with something amazing inside. So of course, we went. On the way, we saw a strange man pacing back and forth saying, "I am the king, I am the king." Me and Neil, we thought he was completely bonkers, but we said, "Come with us, we can help you." Whilst we were walking, both Neil and Tirkir were constantly bickering about who was wearing the finest clothes. Tirkir, believing that he was the king, he thought he wore the best stuff. Then all of a sudden we found a dead end, but fortunately the dead end was soon at an end because we found a very convenient door that of course we went through. And lo and behold, an amazing garden. But who was keeping this garden so prim and proper? It was Bragi. He kept saying they had to keep working. But fortunately, he knew where the tower was happy to show us the way. He pointed out that Egil fell asleep one day and hasn't woken up ever since. So we thought to ourselves, oh, there must be a curse going on, or at least some kind of spell. So I asked Tirkir and Njol if they would be so gracious enough to try and rouse our fellow Viking. So, going to him very quietly, they gave him a bit of a poke. And in a startle, he greeted us in his friendly manner. "Oh, hello, old boys. Are you here for the tower? I'll show you the way. Ha 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 ha." And lo and behold, the great tower. The great tower that's supposed to have the most finest of treasures. The finest of treasures that we hope would make us very wealthy. Slowly we made our way through the tower, through corridor to corridor, stairs to stairs, but we finally got there. Inside this room was a plain looking chest, and I had noticed that on this chest there was an inscription. It said, "Here lies the sacred sandwiches of Saint Sinbad." I wonder who he is. Sensing that this box had a magical spell on it, I asked Bragi to use all his Viking might to smash the box, which he did, and inside was a grand looking burgundy sack made of very fine velvet. Of course, curiosity killed the cat and all that, and sandwiches, finest sandwiches to us all. Wasting no time, each man took a piece of sandwich.
Few moments later.
After finishing his, Tirkir realized that he was in rags and was not best pleased. So, of course, he changed into his finest wares.
Ah, yes.
Njol realized that he'd strayed too far from his farm and had to make a quick dash so he could tend his sheep.
I'm bloody off, youth.
Bragi realized that he wasn't a gardener but a fierce warrior, and instantly went into war mode and wanted to go kill goblins. Our sleeping beauty, Egil, well,
Beautiful
he
pussycat.
is the eye candy of the channel, so he just went off and flirted with the local tavern wenches. And me, well, I realized I didn't get a piece of sandwich. Well, that's not very fair. And that's the end of the story. But you may have noticed, there was someone missing. It was our friend, Iverick.
Hello everyone!
Until we meet again, bye.
Bye.
Now, I swear I can hear music. Yeah, I can definitely hear music. I think it's coming from over here. Oh, that's quite high up. Oh. Oh, crackers. Oh. Whoa. So anyway, yeah, it's coming from this direction. Oh, it's getting louder.
Will you turn that
Why would she
infernal
do that?
music off? We're
Obviously,
trying to
this
get the
isn't like
baby
that.
asleep.
We were listening.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
We're trying to get the baby asleep.
Fancy a cup of tea there, our Beryl?
Yeah, all right.
Can I have one?
Bloody men and their caterwallaring.
Yeah, caterwallaring.
I can't believe your
Sorry,
missus
lads,
just did that.
that's kind of embarrassing.
I'm gonna tell my mum.
Well, that's my exit.
Now today I'm going to tell you a story live on camera. And this is a story I am making up as I go along.
Welcome to Northworthy Sagas and Stories.
I've got some idea in my mind what the story is about. It is about an infamous character called Dave the Cat. And Dave is a Viking cat, and he goes around and he has adventures. And of course one day when Dave passes away, he'll go to Cat Valhalla, as I often say. And this is dedicated to Irish cat Sim Sim, and also to my cats that passed away, Charlie, Monty and Titchy. So once upon a time, in those good old days of the Vikings and the Saxons, there was this mysterious and wonderful supernatural character called Dave. Dave was awesome. Dave was your best friend. He'd always come and meet you, and he could talk, which was very unusual for a cat. I'm sure you agree. And so one day, Dave, the Viking cat, as I sit on my Viking shield and hope I don't fall over, went to a longhouse. He knew. And went to get some milk. He loved his milk. Oh yes, and a bit of mead now and again. Not too much mead, because Dave didn't like getting drunk. Because let's face it, getting drunk in the Dark Ages is not always a good thing. And so he went in this longhouse, and he saw a man with a long white beard, a stranger to the area. And he was telling a story about this treasure buried in a mound that he wanted to go and dig up. Well, Dave thought, well, this sounds like a fun adventure to me. And so he went up to the man with the long white beard and the great cloak and the woolen hat on his head. The man was well tooled up. He had a good sword and a good axe and a good shield. But he says, I hear that you are going on an adventure. You go and dig up some treasure. Is it by chance that you want a companion for this journey? And would you be willing to share some of the treasure with me if I help you on this deed? Well, the wise old Viking, who had lived a long life, he was in his 40s. He had raided Francia, he had raided England, and he had been all over the known world in his famous longship, a dragon ship. But it's now got to the point where he's had enough of raiding. Let's face it, if you've been raiding for 20, 30 years, and you got to the point where you're getting quite old in the beard, you may want to settle down and relax a bit. And wait until that big final battle where you're going to die gloriously and be taken up to Valhalla, or in the modern term, Valhalla. And so, you know, the man, and he has no name, agreed to this. He said, all right then, what's your name? He said, I'm Dave the Cat. I've heard of you. You're famous, just like me. And so Dave sat down at the table. They drank some mead out of horn cups, and they settled down around the fire and fell asleep. And the very next morning, the stranger poked Dave, and Dave said, "Oh, you shouldn't really go around poking cats, you know, that's not a good idea." And the Viking apologised. "I'm sorry, Dave, I won't do that again, but I'm ready to go now," and set off. And so they left. And between them and the old burial mound, which had a big ditch around it, and was a ginormous mound. Some say that there was a longship inside, and some say there wasn't. By this time it was hundreds of years old. They set off, but in between where they had to go there was a massive wood. And so they set off on foot. They could not afford horses, and let's face it, you know, people liked walking in those days, it was good exercise. And they set off through the wood. And not long had they been in the wood, they got set upon by some robbers, some bandits. Well, this Viking with a long beard and Dave fought them and killed all 4 of them. There was 4 bandits. They had a glorious death. But would they go to Valhalla being thieves? No, they'll be going to hell on the Hall of Thieves. Ha ha, that'll teach them. And they set off again. Now they knew it would take a few days to walk through this wood, a very old and ancient wood. Now some people say that in this wood the trees came alive at night and walked about. Well, Dave has never seen a walking tree at this point in the storytelling and his adventures, and perhaps in another adventure he may do, because we know them today as Ents from the Lord of the Rings, and it's a wonderful, amazing concept. Treebeard with his big beard coming alive, walking about. I like to think they actually exist in the modern world. But what do you think? And don't forget to subscribe. And so, you know, they set off. And they came to a clearing in this wood. It was 2 days into their journey. They got on halfway. They probably walked a good 20-30 leagues, you know, 20-30 miles. And the Viking said, well, we need to camp here tonight. It's getting dark, Dave. You know, we need fire to keep warm. And so Dave got his little pouch out, got out his flint and steel, and made a fire. He was excellent at making fires. And quite luckily, you know, Dave had some bread and cheese in his pouch, and the Viking had some bacon already cooked, and some beef, and they ate well. And they wrapped themselves up in their cloaks and slept by the fire, which at that point was a roaring fire with lots of good logs on. And they woke up the next morning, and there was a stranger standing next to them. He said, hey up youth, what are you two doing? Oh, I said, we're on an adventure, stranger, to go to some mound over in that distance, 2 days away by foot. And he says, oh, not the mound with the dead warriors, is it? Oh, I've heard about that. Oh, don't go there, guys. Don't go there, Dave. By this time he knew his name. He said, so Dave, whatever you do, don't go to that mound. But if you do, you must go at night and have a torch lit with flame. That will protect you from the Draugr or the Appleganga, the above walker, because the undead is not a new thing. It is a Viking thing. Vikings invented some great things like mead and undead warriors. And it does remind me of that scene in the in the Norseman when he enters the barrow and the dead king comes alive in his dreams and he fights him. Marvellous film. But I've only seen it once. Not a plug. And now they set off again. 2 days they walked. Again, the night they found another clearing and they made another fire. And they had some more bacon and cheese. And the next morning they reached the area where the mound was. In fact, they could see it in the distance. It was very, very large indeed. You know, Dave turned round to the man. He said, oh, I've never seen a mound like that. And the man said, well, me neither. Imagine what treasures we're going to find. Oh, but we need a spade, Dave. And so Dave got his axe out and found a good log, and he made a log. It took him a couple of hours. He actually made a spade, not a log. And so Dave set about with his axe, and he made a spade out of this wooden log. A wonderful spade. Spades in those days were made of wood, not like today when we've got a metal spade. And so they decided to sit down and make a plan. And so we must listen to that stranger's advice, and we must go at night. I will make 2 torches up. And the old man, he tore out a bit of his, tunic and wrapped it round, the wood stake. And in his little bag, he had a little leather sack with fat in, and he covered it all in fat. And they walked closer to the mound and they made a fire so they could light the torches. Dave had the spade and a torch in one hand, and the Viking had a torch and his sword ready just in case something supernatural appeared. Well, the Viking with the long white beard Perhaps it's Odin, or perhaps it's not. We will never know. And of course, Woden to the English. They said, well, let's go to the top of the mound and we'll dig into it and we'll see what we find. And so the Viking was much bigger than Dave, and the spade that Dave made was too big for him. So he stood guard. He had a little axe and his torch lit. And the Viking started to dig down. He started to dig and dig and dig. All night they dug. It was getting to the point it was about 3 in the morning. That time in the morning when strange things happen. And they heard a growling and a rumbling and a strange noise. Well, the Viking said, well, what do you think that is, Dave? Oh, I don't know, it don't sound good to me. We must get ready and get our weapons ready. And suddenly, out of the hole, an horrible hand and arm appeared, and then another one. And this old Viking warrior, an undead Draugr, started to dig himself out, and he was growling, I'm going to get you, you're digging me up. But something a bit strange happened, because as Dave was thinking what to do, he got his torch out and the Draugr got set alight and, well, burnt to death in a horrible and burning fire. As you could see, not a nice way to go. Now, luckily for them, the burial mound was for one person, and that was the king that came out of the mound and was now a pile of ashes on the floor. Reminds me of playing Skyrim in a way. And Dave and the Viking continued to dig, or the Viking dig and Dave watched with his torch, and they found a large chest. It had silver coins and gold coins. It had bracelets and necklaces. There was swords and axes. And both Dave and the Viking, well, they were very wealthy. I said, what we're going to do, Dave? There's too much treasure. I said, I know. We'll go to the wood over there and we'll bury a load. You know, we'll bank it just in case. We'll hoard it away and we'll take what we can. You can have that sword, I'll have the magic hats, and we'll both be happy. And this is what they did. They separated the treasure. They buried some in an old bit of wood by a tree. And Dave remembered where it was. And one day, he went back for it. And as for the old Viking, well, he got his wish. Because the year after, the summer after this happened, a large battle happened. And the Viking died in the glorious way that the Viking should do. With his sword in hand and his shield. And he was taken up to Valhalla, the hall of the undead Viking warriors. And he had a good seat at the table next to Egil Thorson. And he could see Odin himself in his throne. And I do hope you've enjoyed this story, which I made up live on camera. Because as a storyteller, as a folkloricist, I had the ability to do that. And I do hope you enjoy it. It's goodbye from me, goodbye from my sword, goodbye from my Franciscan axe. And we'll see you in the next tale. Hey! I'm going now. Make a cup of tea. Because I'm British. Marvellous. Hey! Did you like that?
So many hills. Well, at least I've got the gold. Whee!
Stay groovy.
Here lies Ragnar Thorbritches. I wonder if he's famous. Egil Thorson, stay groovy. Never heard of him. Dread Pirate Pete, ye sunk regularly, but it were a puddle that got me.
Perplexing tales unravelling a curious cat's journey. Join the adventure.
The caves of Barrymanilow. I haven't been here for years. Oh, I'll do there, Keith. How you doing, mate?
How many times do I have to tell you, Dave? My name is not Keith, it's Kvardney.
Sorry, Keith.
And anyway, not too good as it happens in there. That's be where that gem of ours has got missing. You know, the gem of Vargengrim. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, would you mind and go fetch it for us?
Being the great adventure cat I am, I surely insist. Ha ha ha.
Oh, and Dave. Ah, nuts. Never told him about the dragon. Oh well.
Oh, bloody hell, Keith never told me how big this place is. Ah, these dwarves ever thought about elevators? Or escalators? Or protractors? Oh, God, I'm not as young as I used to be. Ugh, it looks like I'm nearly there. Oh, God, why is it so hot? This room seems to be ominously luminescent, so I better go in. It's awfully sparkly in here. I really wish I'd borrowed Eggle's sunglasses. But wow, look at that pile of gold. Keith never told me about that. I am honestly impressed that he was sitting on this the whole time. Wow. Just think about it, with all this gold, me and the guys would be set for life. Over there, it's the gem of Venga Boys. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Oh my god, Keith is going to be so happy when I give it to him. Oh, what? Huh? What's that shaking? Oh dear, I shouldn't have eaten that tuna sandwich earlier. Oh, I didn't know that Keith had a neighbour. If I did, I would have brought a bottle of wine. They look very friendly though.
Who disturbs my slumber?
Your voice is funny.
So would yours if you were 12.
I'm actually 6. Oh, actually, I got an idea. Look over there. It's a Tesco worker.
Where? I can't see them. Where can you see them?
Right, whilst he's distracted. It's like stealing candy from a baby. Well, a gem from a dragon.
Where'd that cat go? Telling me that there was a Tesco worker. It was an Aldi worker, and I'm allergic to Aldi workers.
Oh my word, I think he cinched a few tail hairs. I better get this back to Keith.
You come back here with my gem, or else I'll tell my mum.
Keith, I've got your gem of vegetables. I'm just gonna... Oh, God. Oh, how did I do that? Oh, my word.
Oh, don't you mind yourself over that. We've got plenty of spares. I just like to keep a couple just in case. Look, they're right over there.
Spares? Spares! Spares! Oh.
Oh, core blimey. Dave, are you alright? I wonder if I've got enough time to pop to Tesco's.
Hello there, it's me, Agil. It's a great occasion, it's our 2000th sub, and I'd like to say thank you to everybody, and let's keep going. And to celebrate this great occasion, we've got a story about Dave the cat. You've probably heard, those of you who follow us have probably heard about Dave the cat stories that I told and that Bragi has told. Well, this is the third. So, go back with me to a time long ago when knights were bold and dragons breathed fire and there was no such thing as tax. Anyway, Dave the cat was going through the woods as pussycats do, and he was having a nice little sing song. Pussycats do occasionally. And then he heard whoomp! Oh no. Then whoomp! No, you. Try again, you. And then whoomp! No, you. And Dave the cat looked, and it was Niall. What are you doing? Said the cat. Who said? Oh, you. Right. I'm trying to get my breeches on. And what he'd done, between two trees hung his trousers. and he was jumping in the air trying to get both legs in. Honestly, said Dave, do you really think you're going to do that? Look, let me show you how to do it. And he showed Niall how to put the trousers on. And it crossed Dave the cat's mind. Now, Niall is an intelligent person. Very intelligent, in fact. Why, of all of a sudden, should he leap in the air like a cricket trying to get his trousers on? And it turned out that a spell had been cast. Now, you don't need me to tell you that when a spell is cast, that's trouble. And so it was with poor Niall. Look, said Dave, come with me and we'll sort this out. All right, you. And off they went. And on they went on this quest. Now you're probably asking, what is this quest? I can't even say it, let alone explain it. Quest. And they were looking for the sacred sack bag which contained the great brass bound box of Burgundy. Okay, so Dave carried on. Niall spent the night at a hostel. And there, when they got there, they found Niall. No, they didn't. They found Taikir. Now Taikir, he was wearing, of all things, a tattered old blanket and a bucket on his head. What are you doing? Said Dave the cat. Can't you see I'm wearing all these splendid robes and my crown? No, said Dave. No, mate. What you're wearing is a smelly old blanket and a bucket on your head. Oh. What you've had, mate, I'll tell you, is what Niall's had. A spell cast on him. So, what I intend we should do is quite simply find that sacred box and see if we can break the spell. Take that silly bucket and rug off you. Come on. And so it is. They set out. That was the pussycat called Dave. We've got Niall. And now we've got Taikir. Getting a bit crowded. So off they went. And along through this dark forest. There were trees. They thought there might be a troll or two, but they held back because there was two mighty warriors, Taikir and Niall. And the cat walked on. Come on, boys, carry on. And on they went. On and on and on. And there was a massive wall. How are we going to get through this, youth? Said Niall. I know, said Taikir. We form a ladder. How do you form a ladder, you youth? Simple. I'm the lightest, apart from Dave. You stand at the bottom, I get on his shoulders, Dave gets on top and over the top, and then we lift each other in. Well, that's a great idea, said Dave. So it was. Niall stood at the bottom of the wall. Taikir got on his shoulders, and Dave the cat got on Taikir's shoulders. Over they went, and they managed to pull and lift everyone over. When they came over the wall, there was a garden, magnificent, or it had been, but it was covered over. And there was Bragi with his shears, cutting away at a big hedge. Hello, said Bragi. All right, you, said Niall. Hello, said Taikir. Meow went Dave. Dave was a pretty formal kind of cat. And in they went. And there, at the bottom of the stairs, they found none other than Egil, who was fast asleep, as usual. Now then, said Dave, here we have a prime specimen of somebody under a spell. How do we break it? Said Taikir, who had got a rock out of the garden, was quite willing to bang him on the head. Well, that's not going to happen. How about a bucket of water? Said Niall. No, said Dave. How about shaking him? So they shook him, and Egil awoke. Hello, old boy! What are you lot doing here? We've come to break the spell. Oh, well, we'd better go upstairs. And up in this tower they went, higher and higher. And there was a big brass-bound door. They opened said door. And in it was dusty. I ain't talking about Dusty Springfield, neither. It was filthy. But in the corner was a chest, a wooden one. Oh, I think we need to open that, said Tyke. Yes, said Niall. Too right, said Egil. Well, I can find a way, said Bragi, and I produced a great big hammer. Boom! The lock shattered into 1,000 pieces. Well, that was good, said Niall. Yeah, you're right there, said Egil. Oh, I knew that was going to happen, said Tyke. They lifted the lid, and inside was a sack. Beautiful sack. Ah, I could wear that as a hat, said Tyke. Yeah, later, mate. Anyway, inside the sack was a wooden box, and on it was written in runes, "Here be the sacred sandwiches of Sinbad, of Sussex. Whoever who eats said sausages and sandwiches shall regain the power of truth." Yeah, I'll have a go at that, said Tyke. Yum, yum. And he took a bite. Instantly, why am I here with you lot? Well, you're under a spell, said Egil. Yeah, I don't believe what you say, said Tyke. Yeah, he's right, you're under a spell. And he took a bite. And instantly, I remember that, I was having a pint down in my village, and next thing I know, I'm stuck here. Then Egil took a bite, and he was alive and awake and everything. Bragi said, "Come here, is there anything left in there, you greedy lot?" "Oh yeah." And he took a bite of the sandwich and a sausage, and suddenly realised, I'm a top gardener, mate, as well as a warrior. And so it is, the spell was broken. But what about Dave the cat? Well, he took a bite, and he was Dave the cat. But he had a lot of other adventures, which we will cover at a later date. So anyway, that's it. That's our story for 2,000 subs. Can't be wrong. And here's to the next 2,000. If you'd like to subscribe, press the old subscription bell or hashtag Dave the cat, and you'll get there. Now, this is your golden opportunity to let us know what you would like and what you wouldn't like. So let us know. It'd be great to hear from you. And please send us your comments. It'd be great to hear from you. We will get back to you. It does take time. Be patient. So in the meantime, stay safe and make the world a happy place. Bye.
Dum-dee-dum-dee-dum-dee-dum. Oh, I love peaceful days like this. Yes, indeed, yes. Wait, what's that over there?
Why, hello, my champion. Can you please help me out?
Hello. Hello there. You alright?
I have one massive favor to ask you.
I have this one simple task for you.
Yeah, no, I'm off.
Why, I never. All I wanted was to go Tesco's.
You wanted to go Tesco's too?
Yeah, would you mind?
No.
Bloody giants.
Character stories and plot created by Eric Rickarson.
Hi, greetings and welcome to the channel. For today, it is a folktale day, and today I have another of the Dave the Viking Cat stories for you. And this one is called Dave the Cat and the Missing Hunter. So many years ago, when I was living in Northworthy, the village, I was sat in the long hall, the main hall in the village, drinking some mead with my wife Thora, Egglesdottir. And we was, drinking some horns and mead. Then all of a sudden, Dave the Viking Cat appeared and walked through the double doors. Oh, everybody got up and cheered. Hey, it's Dave! Not seen Dave for a while. And Dave immediately saw me and my wife, my whiff, and came over, shouted to the servant, "Mead, please!" and got a little hoard of mead and sat down. And so we got talking, and I said, "Well, Dave, it's been a long time since we've seen you." There I was, eating some stew with my wooden spoon, and he said, "Oh, I've been on a right adventure, and I'm going to have to tell you all about it." So me and the good wife, we sat down and we listened to Dave's story. Now Dave was away from the area, up in North Derbyshire, not far from Macklot in the modern world, and he was in a mead hall when a man came in. He was specifically looking for Dave, and he said, "Ah, Dave the Viking Cat, I've been looking leagues and leagues for you, miles and miles. I've been to so many mead halls, I couldn't tell you how many I've been to, but now I've found you, and I've got a quest for you to go on." And so Dave said, "Well, is there any coin in it? Are you going to pay me something? I don't do things for free. I mean, who would? I wouldn't." And the man got a bag of coin, a little pouch, and waved some coin in front of him, and Dave was a happy cat. And he says, "Well, I come from a family, and my son, who is a hunter, is missing, and he's been missing for a good while. And we've looked high and low where he hunts, and no matter where we looked, we can't find him. That day when he was out, he was hunting duck. Some say he was after the elusive duck of evil, which is another story indeed. But yeah, no matter where we searched, we asked around all the local people, went to all the farms. They said, have we seen, the hunter who remains nameless in the story, and nobody had seen him. And the only person we thought about, an older man with a big grey beard and no hair, perhaps his name was Niel, I don't know, but he was sitting in a very smoky long hall in his long house, and he said, "Ah, you want Dave the Cat for this mystery, and so I am now here to ask you to go on this quest, to go and find the missing hunter." And so Dave said, "All right, when did you last see him?" "Oh, he was up Middleton way, and he was heading up to the moors to hunt for some birds and some various creatures that live on the moor, including deer." "Oh, I will start there," said Dave. So after a good amount of mead and a hot meal and a good bed for the night, Dave the Viking Cat set off on his journey. And it took him 3 days to get to Middleton, which is way up in Derbyshire, a very well known place for mining. In fact, the Romans were there well before the Anglo-Saxons, mining for lead and precious minerals, including silver and gold. And so Dave followed the route. He heard all about where the hunter would go, and he came to a place by a lake on the moors, and there was a lone tree, and something caught his eye. For on the tree was a leather satchel, a leather sack. He grabbed it, climbed up the tree, grabbed this sack, looked at it and said, "This is a sack of a hunter." For there was arrowheads and a flint and steel and a small little knife, a little sea axe. He said, "This must be the hunter's bag." And it was right beside a lake, and it was a full moon, and it was getting late. And Dave said, "Well, I've got to carry on searching tomorrow, so I'm going to make a little fire and a little bed." But then, during the night, something strange happened, for he heard an enchanting singing voice. It was indeed, you may not guess what it is, but I'm going to tell you, it was indeed a mermaid of the lake. We often think about mermaids living in the sea, but they also reside and live in lakes as well. And Dave was enticed by this wonderful sound, this wonderful singing, and he started, without realising, to walk into the lake. But then something very, very strange happened, for he was sucked down a whirlpool, and suddenly he found himself in a strange, strange land. Well, Dave, being a clever cat, he realised that this is where the hunter must have gone. Hunter must have done the same thing, had been camping that night and got enticed into the lake and had been sucked by the lake with the whirlpool into this strange land. Now the first thing he did when he got out of this other lake on the other side, he climbed onto the bank and he saw some footprints of some good leather shoes. Oh, those look like the shoes prints of a hunter, and by the side of them was an axe. Oh well, he thought to himself, oh, I'm going to have that axe. You can never own enough axes. And so he started walking until he came to an enchanted forest. And in the forest, in the distance, you could see an old castle. Stone walls with ivy growing all the way up it. No doubt it has been abandoned for a long time. But yet he could hear the singing voices coming from this place. For it was indeed the place that the mermaids of this land lived in. And so he got closer, he came to a double massive door with iron hinges decorated with the heads of dragons and all manner of creatures. And he managed to just prise with his club the door open, and he went inside, being very careful. He had a wooden club, and you never know what is out there in the wilds and in old castles. It could be skeleton warriors, it could be the undead, the Draugr, the Aflaganger, the above walker, the undead. But he was lucky, for none of those creatures resided there. He thought to himself, well, perhaps this is the lair of a dragon, because let's face it, dragons like to live in old castles because they're always full of gold and silver and jewels. But no, there was no dragon. And he came to a massive hall. He looked up, he couldn't see the ceiling, it was that tall, with massive stone pillars and animal motifs and lovely embroidery sheets with dragons and all manner of creatures embroidered into these silk sheets. And the place was full of gorgeous and amazing looking women, but also female cats. He couldn't believe it. He thought, oh, this is my lucky day, isn't it? You know, I come to a place full of lovely feline cats. But these were no ordinary cats, these were mermaid cats. Oh yes, he knew that because he saw pictures of them on the walls. And in the very back of the hall there was a big chair and a throne. In front of it was a big hearth, a big fire pit. And in that chair sat the hunter. And Dave said, well, are you the hunter I've been looking for? He says, yes, I've been here for a few years now. I said, well, we must escape, for your family is asking about you and want you back. Your wife is wondering where you are, and your father came to see me and gave me some coin. And he says that I must promise to bring you back. Well, the hunter at this point was quite tired because he was having a good old time with the mermaids, who at this point had no tails, of course, because they wasn't in water. They was walking about and they was very beautiful, but he was worn out. He's been breeding with them and having a good time, and so him and Dave plotted to escape that night. But the man said, we must go to the treasury first, for there is a nice bow which I want, and in that treasury, in that hall where all the gold and silver and weapons are, there's a magical axe, a magical T-shaped axe, and I think that axe has your name on it. And so Dave and the hunter went to the hall. They filled up their little sacks with gold coin and all the jewels they could carry, and then they found a magical rope which they tied out of a window and lowered themselves down. Well, at this point the mermaids who lived in this castle realised what had happened. Dave the Viking cat was hoping the hunter to escape. Well, they wanted to keep him there, and also the feline cats were quite happy to have a male cat, a male Ginger Tom, in the long hall and the castle, and so they too started to chase after them. But Dave being Dave and the hunter being the hunter were very fast on their legs, and managed to swiftly escape. It was a full moon night, and they got to the pool, and they both saw the whirlpool appearing in the lake, and they both dived in with the gold and the jewels, and the hunter had a magic enchanted bow, enchanted by the land rights, the spirits of the land. And Dave, of course, had his magic axe, another magic weapon for Dave. And so they came to Middle Earth once they got through the lake, and the hunter and Dave went back to the village where he lived, and his family was overjoyed when he marched through the doors of their long hall. His wife was very happy, and his 3 children were even more happier. It is always funny how 3 appears in these tales. And that is the end of the story, and that is the end of this Dave the Cat folk tale, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I made this story up the other day when I was in bed thinking, and I now elaborated on it as I tell it to you now. So if you're new to the channel, if you love a good folk tale, then I do urge you to subscribe and leave us a comment. Hail to all those that watch, and hail to the teller of the tale, and hail to the All-Father, Rodin and Odin.
In the mist-shrouded fjords of 9th century Scandinavia, legends whispered through the pine forests and across the mead halls. But none so strange, or so daring, as the tale of Dave, the talking cat who walked on 2 legs, wore a tiny chainmail tunic, and wielded a seax knife twice his size. Dave wasn't just any cat. He had a nose for secrets, a fondness for fish jerky, and an unshakable belief that he was destined for greatness. So when word reached him of a lost treasure hidden in an ancient burial mound, he cleaned his whiskers, strapped on his satchel, and decided it was time to go adventuring. But no cat goes alone into the land of the dead. Dave first recruited Bragi Magnusson, a skald whose songs could charm snakes and sometimes women, though rarely both at once. Next came Egil Thorson, a hulking berserker with more scars than sense and an axe he called Gutsinger. Egil was a great rune caster and fierce Viking warrior. And then there was Njal Sigmundsson, the infamous bald-headed sheep farmer with a reputation for rage and a helmet 2 sizes too small, and did not wear trousers. Just a long woolen tunic, he was a part-time Viking, full-time grump, and had once punched a troll in the knee and longtime friend of Tyrkir, the mighty skald and poet. Together they set sail up the coast in a stolen fishing boat named the Fluffy Doom, toward the dark hills where the barrow mound of Karsfjell loomed, a place cursed, they said, where the dead still walked. Inside they would face Draugr, undead Norse warriors, risen from their graves with eyes like ice and hearts full of hate. These creatures did not sleep, did not bleed, and did not like cats. But Dave had a plan. And claws, absolutely. Here's a thrilling ending to your Viking cat adventure. As Dave and his ragtag crew descended into the black heart of the Karsfjell Barrow Mound, the stench of death clung to the air like old mead on a drunkard's beard. Their torches flickered against walls carved with ancient runes, runes that warned of curses, death, and something called eternal cat chasing. Dave narrowed his eyes. He didn't like that one bit. They reached the burial chamber just as the ground began to tremble. From the shadows crawled the Draugr, armored corpses with frostbitten flesh and glowing blue eyes, clutching rusted swords still sharp enough to cleave a man in 2. "Don't worry," Bragi whispered, unsheathing his harp instead of a weapon. "Play anything but that sad goat ballad again," growled Egil, raising Gutsinger. The battle erupted. Egil charged with a roar, swinging his axe in wide arcs, chopping through bone and rotted sinew. Njal headbutted a Draugr so hard its helmet dented inward like a crushed skull bowl. Bragi, to everyone's surprise, played a battle chant so inspiring that even the dead hesitated. But it was Dave, the bipedal cat, who leapt through the air like a shadow. Meat roasted, songs rang, and warriors danced. Egil arm wrestled a blacksmith, Njal accidentally married a shield maiden, and Dave sat atop the mead barrel, sipping from a fish-shaped drinking horn, purring loudly. And somewhere, deep beneath the mound, the Draugr stirred no more. Thus ends the saga of Dave the Viking cat and the Draugr of Karsfjell Barrow. But who knows what strange adventure he'll claw into next? Dave the Viking cat and the beanstalk of the giants. Once upon a time, in a rickety longhouse near the edge of a fjord, there lived a brave and mischievous feline warrior named Dave the Viking Cat and his human companion, old Nana Skogkata. They were poor, so poor they had only one thing left, a scraggly old goat named Clumsy Hoof who gave just enough milk to make weak cheese. But one cold morning, Clumsy Hoof stopped giving milk. Nana sighed and handed Dave a tiny axe and a rope. "Off to the market, Dave," she said. "Sell the goat or we'll be chewing on bark all winter." So Dave, with his furry cloak and tiny horned helmet, set off down the mountain path. On the way, he met a shady-looking forest troll with a long beard full of mushrooms. "Trade that goat for these," the troll croaked, revealing 5 glowing runic beans. "Plant them by moonlight and they'll grow to the realm of the giants." "Deal," said Dave with a flick of his tail. He had a nose for mischief and adventure. When he returned home, Nana was furious. "You traded our goat for beans, you daft fluffball!" She tossed the beans out the window and went to bed muttering in Old Norse. But by dawn, a massive green beanstalk had shot up past the clouds, shaking snow from the mountains. "Adventure time," Dave meowed, strapping on his tiny sword and climbing up the stalk with the agility only a Viking cat could possess. At the top, Dave found himself in Jotunheim, the land of the frost giants. Towering in the distance was a colossal castle with walls made of ice and bones. Inside, Dave met a grumpy giantess cook who had a soft spot for cats and fed him salted herring. But then came the roar of her husband. "Fifi Furfang, I smell the paws of a meowing gang! Be it feline, sly, or bold, I'll grind its bones and take its gold." Dave hid in a horned helmet. While the giant snored after his meal, Dave spotted magical treasures. A goose that laid gold coins every time it honked, a harp that sang ancient Norse battle songs, and a pouch of endless smoked salmon, Dave's favorite. One by one, over 3 daring raids, Dave stole these magical treasures. But on the final heist, the harp cried out, "Help, I'm being catnapped!" The giant roared awake and thundered after him, his footsteps shaking the sky. Dave scrambled down the beanstalk with the harp clinging to his tail, the goose honking wildly. "Nana, axe!" "Now!" Dave yowled as he leapt to the ground. Nana swung with surprising strength, chopping the beanstalk just as the giant began to climb down. With a mighty crack, the beanstalk collapsed, and the giant plummeted, vanishing in a puff of snow and moss. The fjord echoed with silence. From that day on, Dave and Nana lived comfortably, feasting on salmon, gold coins, and harp music. Dave even built a tiny mead hall for retired adventuring cats, and every so often, when the clouds parted, Dave would glance up and wonder, what else might be living above the sky?
So cold here. Just need to lean against this for a few minutes. The air is so thick because it's so cold. Anyway, I better keep trudging on. God blimey. Oh look, there's a big rock over there. Maybe I'll be able to see where I'm going from up there. Let's see. Anything that direction? No. Anything that direction? No. Oh dear. Oh, it's a lovely river. And up. Oh look, Frey's over there. But he looks completely bewildered.
Oh, bloody hell, where did that boar gone?
How do, Frey? What's going on?
Is that bloody boar of mine, Gullenbursty? He gone run over there somewhere.
Gullenbursty, eh? Well, maybe I can find him. Off we go. Something about these adventures, always climbing. Gullenbursty! Nope, okay. But I've got to admit, I do admire the woods. Hop! Aha! Didn't see that. I wonder if this is the Forest of Dean. Oh, gold! It's a bear! Why is there a bear in the Forest of Dean? Listen, Winnie. Back off, please. Please? Oh my god. Oh, I don't like bears. But then again, who does? Gullenbursty! Oh! I'm so happy to see you. Come here, you silly pig. Time for some scritches, I think. A tickle, 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 tickle. Anyway, let's get you back to Frey before it's too late. Oh, hey! Anyway, don't you dare. Oh, my God. Oh, I feel a little bit sick.
Oh dear, where is that cat and that boar? They should have been back by now.
Oh, sorry, Frey. That wasn't intentional.
Gullenbursty, you silly sow. Oh, I'm so glad to see you again. Sorry about the trouble there, Dave. But we better get going now. We're off to Tesco's.
Oh, bloody Tesco's. Oh! Hey, Frey, you forgot your boat. Oh, God, it's getting bigger. Oh, it nearly crushed me.
Dave the Viking Cat and the Enchanted Forest of Sherwood. Part 1. The Call to Adventure. Dave the Viking Cat lounged in the smoky corner of the great mead hall, the air thick with laughter, clanking tankards, and the sweet scent of spiced mead. His sleek fur shimmered in the flickering firelight as he lapped eagerly at a goblet of strong mead left unattended on the long oak table. The hall buzzed with stories of battles won and feasts to come, until thud! A rolled-up map slapped down heavily in front of him. The source was a cloaked stranger, panting and wide-eyed, who darted past 12 grim horse riders dressed in black leather and shadow. Their horses' hooves thundered like storm clouds outside. Before Dave could even let out a questioning meow, a weary old wizard appeared beside him, his beard tangled and eyes twinkling beneath his hood. "I'm glad you got that map," the wizard said in a voice gravelly with urgency. "What map?" blinked Dave, puzzled. "You know what I mean," the wizard whispered. "We've got an adventure to go on, but first we need a band of companions. You find some, I'll find some. We meet back here in a week." The room grew colder, the shadows deeper. Dave's tail twitched. This was no ordinary quest. It was the quest. Dave the Viking Cat and the Enchanted Forest of Sherwood. Part 2. The Fellowship Forms and the Witch of Woof Woof. Dave set out immediately to find Eagle the Berserker, fierce warrior, master of rune casting, and known for his unstoppable rage. But Eagle was nowhere to be found. Rumor had it he was either in Valhalla for a holiday or wooing a maiden somewhere deep in the north. Frustrated, Dave went to Bragi the Skald's cozy hut. Inside, a heated argument was underway between Bragi, a poetic storyteller, and Eric the Viking, who proudly wielded a collection of deadly axes. "My axe is finer. No, mine is," Dave interrupted with the weight of urgency. "We've got a quest, boys." Instantly, axes were set aside, and the three of them hurried after Dave. But then, a sudden rustle in the underbrush. "A spy!" hissed Bragi. With lightning reflexes, Eric lunged and out-tumbled Sigurd the Nutty Squirrel, Dave's old friend and notorious prankster. Suddenly, a puff of glittering smoke announced the return of the wizard, Granelfa. Beside him stood two stout dwarves with braided beards and sharp eyes, Alfred and Tedric, better known as Fred and Ted. "That makes 6, said Granelfa, "but this quest calls for 7. They all looked around. Missing was Egil. The journey began with stops in Djoraby to stock up on weapons sharpened by the finest blacksmiths. Bogwash Inn, where the ale was suspiciously strong, and the locals whispered of dark enchantments. Snottenham to buy Sigurd a sturdy bow for the battles ahead. Gotham, traveling via the dusty King's Road. As they neared the ancient Sherwood forest, Bragi's voice lowered. "Beware, friends! There's a bandit a rowan in these woods." Dave's emerald eyes gleamed with determination. "We shall tread carefully." Sigurd busily gathered nuts, seemingly oblivious. Night fell, and deep in the woods a fair maiden appeared. She smiled with mysterious charm, her voice a sultry whisper. "Woof, woof," she purred. Though suspicious, the company was thirsty and weary, so they accepted her invitation to stay. But at midnight, the maiden's true form was revealed, an ancient witch with eyes burning like embers and a cackle that chilled the bone. A fierce battle erupted. Dave, channeling his skaldic magic, summoned a feline charm, sparkling fur and swirling lights that wrapped around the witch, binding her tightly. In her dark cellar, they found a magical drinking horn. Dave, with trembling paws, rubbed it 3 times, and with a bright poof out popped Egil. "I've been trapped in that blasted horn for days," Egil growled, flexing his muscles. The companions cheered, now complete. Dave the Viking Cat and the Enchanted Forest of Sherwood. Part 3. The Ring of Passing Wind and the Final Climb. Granelfa drew a glowing ring on the forest floor, the Ring of Passing Wind. The map showed the next challenge: cross a cursed wood, scale the forgotten mountain, and claim the legendary treasure of Ragnar Hairy Trousers. But first, Troll Country. At the edge of a mossy glen, they met the notorious Troll King Jeff. His real name was Joff, but nobody called him that. His booming laughter echoed through the trees. I'm fed up with fighting trolls, muttered Dave as he activated the ring's power, a legendary blast of wind so fierce it sent the trolls tumbling. Next came the river of certain doom. The river roared and churned, too dangerous to cross by any normal means. Suddenly, from a blood-red chest emerged a strange talking map, its voice echoing with riddles. Then, to their surprise, Njal appeared from the shadows. I've been following you, he said dryly. Turkir's tales about grapevines and seagulls nearly put me to sleep. As they debated how to cross, a stranger appeared, clad in a peculiar blue outfit, dressed like Doctor Who standing beside a strange blue box. The TARDIS. It was the Doctor, or Doctor Who, himself a time-traveling Time Lord. We won't all fit, said Egil skeptically. But they all climbed inside, and the box was enormous inside. This hurts my brain, muttered Bragi. Small but big, Egil shrugged. Must be magic. With a whoosh, they crossed safely. At the foot of the Forgotten Mountain, their final challenges awaited. Swarms of snarling goblins, a terrifying worm dragon with scales like molten lava, and one last riddle, carved in stone by Ragnar Hairy Trousers himself. After fierce battles, clever trickery, and Sigurd's brave distraction, hurling nuts straight into the dragon's blazing eye, they reached the hidden treasure. Inside the chest glittered piles of golden coins, a magical beard comb that sparkled with runes, 3 enchanted socks, rumored to grant unmatched speed, and a scroll that read, "Well done, O brave fools. Now go home and try not to do this again." Dave purred with satisfaction. Another legendary tale to add to the Mead Hall's fireside stories. Dave the Viking Cat and the Ale of Trolls. Adapted from Danish folklore. One fine midsummer eve, when the sky glowed like toasted salmon and the air smelled suspiciously of burnt socks and mead, Dave the Viking Cat sat on a rock near the edge of the forest, licking his paw and thinking deep philosophical thoughts like, why does fish never fall from the sky? And why hasn't anyone invented cheese for cats? Suddenly the wind changed. A strange, yeasty, almost magical smell wafted through the trees. Dave's whiskers twitched. That, he said aloud, smells like troll ale. Now most cats would run the other way. Trolls are notorious for being loud, smelly, and terrible at chess. But Dave, brave and battle-scarred, once clawed a berserker's beard clean off. He wasn't about to miss a chance at a legendary beverage. He followed the scent through the twilight woods until he reached an ancient barrow mound, half swallowed by moss and moonlight. From within came raucous laughter and the clang of mugs. Dave crept up, tail low, ears high. Inside, a dozen trolls were brewing their midsummer ale, a bubbling, frothy brew that glowed like gold and smelled like victory and very old cheese. The troll chief, a mountain of a creature named Gloof, raised a drinking horn and roared, "No mortal beast or man shall sip our sacred ale or face the bottom of the cauldron." Naturally, this meant Dave was definitely going to sip the sacred ale. When the trolls passed out in an epic snorathon, Dave tip-pawed into the barrow, climbed a barrel like a fuzzy Viking ninja, and dipped his tiny drinking horn. One sip. Kaboom! Suddenly, his fur gleamed like a thundercloud, his meow echoed like a war horn, and he understood Latin. He ran back to the village, tail high, and shared the tale and a few drops with his animal friends. Soon the chickens could juggle, the cows wrote poetry, and a hedgehog named Olga opened a very successful tavern. But of course, trolls don't like sharing. That midsummer they returned, stomping and snorting, demanding their ale back, and the cat who stole it. But Dave, being Dave, had brewed his own version by then. He called it Meowdy Mead. It wasn't quite as magical, but it did make squirrels dance and made your whiskers tingle. As for the trolls, Dave challenged them to a drinking contest. He won, naturally. The trolls passed out again. And the mound hasn't opened since. But every midsummer, if you hear tiny hiccups in the wind and smell toast, cheese, and danger, that's Dave, raising a horn of ale and victory, and possibly stealing your fish. Dave the Viking Cat versus the Saxon Sheep Sorcerers, a humorous, action-packed, and magical short story in the fantasy comedy style of your Dave the Viking Cat series. Dave the Viking Cat versus the Saxon Sheep Sorcerers, a tale of fluff, fury, and forbidden woodcraft. It began, as many ridiculous things do, with a missing sausage. Dave the Viking Cat, mighty hunter, cunning strategist, and part-time nap enthusiast, was sunning himself on the roof of Bragi's longhouse when he detected an unforgivable absence. The spicy, smoked sausage he'd buried beneath the furs last night was gone. And not just gone. Gone. With hoof prints. Chapter 1, The Cloven-Hoofed Conspiracy. Dave sprang into action, tail lashing like the sails of a longship in a gale. He followed the tracks out of the village of Catafjord, across the misty moors, and deep into the heart of Saxon lands, where things got woolly, literally. Atop a windswept hill stood a ring of ancient standing stones, guarded by hooded sheep, each with a staff clutched in their hooves and runes bleeding with dark power. "Saxon sheep sorcerers!" Dave hissed, ears flattened. "I knew the wool cult survived!" The leader, a massive ram in a tattered robe, stepped forward. His fleece glowed faintly with eldritch embroidery. "Bartholomew welcomes you, feline interloper," the ram intoned. "We have your sausage and your destiny." Chapter 2, The Curse of the Golden Fleece Ball. Bartholomew raised his staff and chanted in Old Ba-Runic. Lightning cracked, wool bristled. Dave's claws unsheathed instinctively. "We know your secret, Cat of the North," said another sorcerer sheep. "You are the guardian of the 9 sausages of Sagaheim. Surrender your whiskers and we'll spare your tail." "Try it, Woolface," Dave growled, eyes glowing green. "I didn't battle a frost drake in a privy just to get fleeced by fluff wizards." With that, he launched into battle, fur flying, claws slashing, and insults sharper than his fangs. Chapter 3, Wool and War Cries. Spells and sparks lit the sky as Dave dodged enchanted sheep pellets and kicked a runestone over with one mighty paw. He called upon his ancestors, summoning the ghost of Olaf Herbalson, a legendary Viking warcat with a battle yowl so fierce it once cracked a goat's horn. Together they fought back the flock. Bragi the Skald appeared at the last minute on a stolen pony, singing badly and throwing fermented turnips. Egil the Berserker Runecaster arrived shirtless and covered in butter, yelling something about Viking honor and lactose vengeance. In the chaos, Dave snatched back the sausage and bit it triumphantly. Tastes of victory and sheep fear. Chapter 4, The Unraveling. As the Saxon sheep sorcerers fled into the mist, their wool robes unspooling behind them, Bartholomew turned and cursed Dave. "You may have won today, feline fiend, but mark our ba bleats. The sheep shall rise again." Dave licked a paw and shrugged. "Get in line, so will the badgers." And the cabbage druids. Epilogue. Back to the longhouse. Back in Catafjord, Dave curled up beside the hearth with his sausage, purring like a thunderstorm. Bragi raised a mug. "What news, Dave?" "Nothing much," Dave yawned. "Just beat a cult of spellcasting Saxon sheep and saved the realms from woolly doom." Bragi blinked. "Should I write a saga?" Dave flicked his tail. "Only if it rhymes and makes me look cooler than Eagle." The end, coming soon. Dave the Viking Cat and the Were-Seagulls of Lindisfarne. Dave the Viking Cat and the Were-Seagulls of Jorvik. A tale of feathers, fish theft, and fowl squawking. Chapter 1, The Screech in the Night. It was a peaceful evening in Jorvik. Bragi the Skald was tuning his lyre, badly. Egil the Berserker was greasing his muscles with butter again, and Dave the Viking Cat was doing what all heroes do in moments of calm, guarding a smoked herring he'd swiped from the Jarl's breakfast table. But then, squaw! A blood-curdling screech echoed over the rooftops. Dave's fur stood on end. "Either Bragi's singing again," he muttered, "or something far more evil just took flight." Moments later, a terrified villager stumbled into the longhouse. "They're back!" he cried. The Were-Seagulls of Jorvik. Dave narrowed his glowing green eyes. Feathered freaks. Chapter 2, The Curse of the Crescent Beak. The legend was older than the sagas. Once, long ago, a group of ordinary seagulls had stolen a cursed amulet from a druid picnic. Now, every full moon, they transformed into terrifying man-sized gull beasts with glowing eyes, razor talons, and an unnatural obsession with shiny things and unattended pies. They'd once pecked a man's boots clean off. They've already taken 3 sausages, a baby goat, and the Jarl's gold-plated chamber pot. Bragi cried, Egil roared. "They pecked my favorite butterhorn." Dave rose slowly, eyes blazing with purpose. "No one raids this town but me. Time to clip some wings." Chapter 3, Midnight Mayhem in the Meat Hall. That night, as the full moon rose like a smug cheese wheel in the sky, the attack began. Feathers blackened the moonlight. Squawks filled the air. Doors were torn from hinges. Fish were gone. A poor merchant screamed, "They took my trousers!" Dave leapt into action. Clad in his miniature iron helmet and wielding 2 butter knives strapped to his paws, he pounced from rooftop to rooftop, hissing Norse battle cries. "Scrack this!" One where Seagull lunged at him, screeching, "Shinnies!" Dave rolled, slashed, and uppercutted it into a rain barrel. Another flapped toward him carrying a stolen cheese wheel. Dave countered with a tailspin so powerful it generated a small thunderclap and knocked the gull straight into Broggy's poorly tuned lyre. "That improved the music," Dave quipped. Chapter 4. The beaconing atop the mead hall, Dave faced their leader, King Gullgrim, the Squawk Cursed. He was enormous, wings like sails, eyes like boiled turnips, and a beak forged in nightmares. "You dare defy me, furry land scuttler?" Gullgrim cackled. "I defy bad manners and airborne poultry," Dave retorted, licking his paw. The final battle was a blur of feathers, claws, fishbones, and one very confused goat. Dave hurled a smoked eel like a javelin. Gullgrim squawked in horror. "You monster!" "That was my lunch." With a final leap and an epic hiss, Dave tackled the Bird King into a cart of fermented herring. It exploded. Epilogue. Feathers and fame. By dawn, the were-seagulls had vanished. The curse broken, the town saved. The Jarl rewarded Dave with a throne made of fish bones and declared him defender of Jorvik and enemy of beaky things. Egil cried tears of butter. Bragi sang a saga titled The Cat Who Clawed the Moon. Dave just yawned, curled up on the Jarl's fur cloak, and purred. Next time, let's hope it's were-ferrets. I could use a challenge. The end next. Dave the Viking Cat versus the undead that stole Midwinter. Dave the Viking Cat and the were-seagulls of Jorvik. A tale of feathers, fish theft, and foul squawking. Chapter 1. The Screech in the Night. It was a peaceful evening in Jorvik. Bragi the Skald was tuning his lyre, badly. Egil the Berserker was greasing his muscles with butter again, and Dave the Viking Cat was doing what all heroes do in moments of calm, guarding a smoked herring he'd swiped from the Jarl's breakfast table. But then, squaw! A blood-curdling screech echoed over the rooftops. Dave's fur stood on end. Either Bragi's singing again, he muttered, or something far more evil just took flight. Moments later, a terrified villager stumbled into the longhouse. "They're back!" he cried. The were-seagulls of Jorvik. Dave narrowed his glowing green eyes. Feathered freaks. Chapter 2. The Curse of the Crescent Beak. The legend was older than the sagas. Once, long ago, a group of ordinary seagulls had stolen a cursed amulet from a druid picnic. Now, every full moon, they transformed into terrifying man-sized gull beasts with glowing eyes, razor talons, and an unnatural obsession with shiny things and unattended pies. They'd once pecked a man's boots clean off. They've already taken 3 sausages, a baby goat, and the Jarl's gold-plated chamber pot. Bragi cried, Egil roared. "They pecked my favorite butterhorn." Dave rose slowly, eyes blazing with purpose. "No one raids this town but me. Time to clip some wings." Chapter 3. Midnight mayhem in the meat hall. That night, as the full moon rose like a smug cheese wheel in the sky, the attack began. Feathers blackened the moonlight. Squawks filled the air. Doors were torn from hinges. Fish were gone. A poor merchant screamed, "They took my trousers!" Dave leapt into action. Clad in his miniature iron helmet and wielding 2 butter knives strapped to his paws, he pounced from rooftop to rooftop, hissing Norse battle cries. "Scrack this!" One where Seagull lunged at him, screeching, "Shinnies!" Dave rolled, slashed, and uppercutted it into a rain barrel. Another flapped toward him carrying a stolen cheese wheel. Dave countered with a tailspin so powerful it generated a small thunderclap and knocked the gull straight into Bragi's poorly tuned lyre. "That improved the music," Dave quipped. Chapter 4. The beaconing atop the mead hall, Dave faced their leader, King Gullgrim, the Squawk Cursed. He was enormous, wings like sails, eyes like boiled turnips, and a beak forged in nightmares. "You dare defy me, furry land scuttler?" Gullgrim cackled. "I defy bad manners and airborne poultry," Dave retorted, licking his paw. The final battle was a blur of feathers, claws, fishbones, and one very confused goat. Dave hurled a smoked eel like a javelin. Gullgrim squawked in horror. "You monster!" "That was my lunch." With a final leap and an epic hiss, Dave tackled the Bird King into a cart of fermented herring. It exploded. Epilogue. Feathers and fame. By dawn, the were-seagulls had vanished. The curse broken, the town saved. The Jarl rewarded Dave with a throne made of fish bones and declared him defender of Jorvik and enemy of beaky things. Egil cried tears of butter. Bragi sang a saga titled The Cat Who Clawed the Moon. Dave just yawned, curled up on the Jarl's fur cloak, and purred. Next time, let's hope it's were-ferrets. I could use a challenge. The end next. Dave the Viking Cat versus the undead that stole Midwinter. Dave the Viking Cat versus the undead zombies that stole Midwinter. A tale of claws, chaos, and cold-blooded corpse combat. Chapter 1. The night Midwinter disappeared. In the frostbitten village of Katafjord, preparations for the great Midwinter feast were in full swing. Mead was flowing, meat was roasting, and Bragi the Skald was singing a song about a fish who fell in love with a helmet. Dave the Viking Cat lounged on the mead table like a furry chieftain, swatting a snowflake with utter contempt. I've earned this nap, he muttered. No prophecies, no poultry, no... Suddenly a scream echoed across the fjord. Then another. Then Bragi's lyre caught fire. The dead walk! Shouted Egil Thorson, bare-chested, soaked in goose grease, and holding a flaming ham. At the village gate, silhouettes shuffled forward. Frozen, groaning, and wearing bits of last year's festival hats. Dave blinked. Great. Undead party crashers must be Tuesday. Chapter 2. Enter the heroes and Bragi. The villagers rallied at once. Thora Egilsdottir, the shield maiden, arrived first, wielding a round shield and a bigger attitude. No one ruins Midwinter while I'm breathing. Tyrkir Torkelson, already halfway through a dramatic retelling of the events that hadn't finished happening, declared, And lo! From the mist arose brave Tyrkir, slayer of frost and master of long-winded tales. Njal Sigmundsson, sheep farmer extraordinaire, came sprinting over in woolly panic. They took my sheep, my prize sheep. Fluffy Harold. Bragi, still on fire slightly, played a dramatic chord and yelled, The dead want our mead! Egil just roared and oiled up again. Dave sighed. Why is it always the weird ones who survive Ragnarok? Chapter 3. The undead don't like cats. The zombies were no ordinary restless dead. They were the Draugr of Midwinter, cursed warriors who rose every century to steal warmth, meat, and holiday cheer. Their leader, King Snurret the Chilly, wearing a crown of ice, a beard full of icicles, and a serious case of post-mortem bad attitude. We take your fire, we take your food. We take your festive table centerpieces. Dave launched himself off the mead table and landed squarely on the king's frosty skull. Bad undead? No turkey for you? Chapter 4. Shield Maidens, Sheep, and Shenanigans. A chaotic battle erupted. Thora charged into the fray, smashing through bone and ice like a sleigh through pudding. This is for the sausages. Egil tackled a Draugr through a snowman. Tyrkir narrated everything while throwing pine cones. And then, with unmatched heroism, Tyrkir smote a skeleton right in the tibia. Njal tried to lure the undead with decoy sheep in festive sweaters. It mostly worked. Dave clawed, hissed, and flung flaming mince pies with unnatural accuracy. One zombie moaned, No! Not the fruitcakes! Dave replied, Your afterlife just got seasonal. Chapter 5. A Cold Claw of Victory. Atop the village watchtower, King Snurrat prepared his final curse, an eternal snowstorm to bury Katafjord in ice forever. But he didn't count on Dave. The Viking cat leapt from Thora's shield, tail blazing with mead-soaked fury, and sank his claws into the king's beard. You forgot one thing, Frosty. Dave snarled. I hate being cold. With a mighty screech, he dragged the cursed crown off Snurrat's head and hurled it into Bragi's bonfire. There was a thunderous boom. The undead exploded into snowflakes and weird smells. Midwinter was saved. Epilogue. The feast returns. The villagers cheered. Bragi wrote a new saga, Egil flexed. Thora got a second helping of roast boar. Njal found Fluffy Harold asleep inside a barrel of mead. Tyrkir was still narrating the whole thing in third person. And Dave? He curled up next to the hearth, paw over his eyes, murmuring, If one more corpse shows up before Yule, I'm moving to Byzantium. Next, Dave the Viking cat and the frost giants who mistook him for a god.
Take your bloody axe.
I don't want my bloody axe.
Oh, hey guys, just ignore them. That's Brendan and Susan. They're my neighbors. Well, Today, I thought we'd have a bit of you and me time because I've noticed that you have been watching the videos, but you don't seem to know anything about me. So, would you like to see a baby photo? Yeah, you want to see a baby photo? Okay then. It's a little bit embarrassing, but here we go. Oh, I hope they don't laugh. So this is me as a kitten. I was born in Ringalika, and I was from a not so noble family, but luck would have it, and I've been on these grand adventures ever since. It was during one of these adventures that I bumped into my adopted father, Egil Thorson, who took me on and taught me the way of being a Viking. My uncles are Bragi Magnusson and Eirik Rickardson. If you want to ask them for baby photos, I'm sure they would oblige. So, let me just get rid of this now. So this is the time where I'm going to ask you if you could leave a comment, like this video, and if you'd be so kind, subscribe to the channel. My editor, who is actually my Uncle Eirik, puts a lot of effort into these videos, and he would really much appreciate that his hard work would be appreciated by you. Anyway, until the next time, tatty bye!
Take the bloody axe.
Boy, just take the axe already, Brendan.
Oh, not you as well, Dave. Oh, but it clashes with my helmet.
Where in the heavens am I? What? Oh, wow, no one saw that. Right, let's see. Ah, that building over there must be where I need to go. That gentleman over there seems quite nice. I'll ask him where I'm going. Excuse me. Oh, who are you?
I am Hela, the daughter of Loki and the queen of Helheim. What are you doing here?
Okay then. So, who's the chap over there then? You know, the one just standing there.
Oh man, he's talking about me. Right, my name is Balder. I'm 6'2". From Asgard. I've got strawberry blonde hair. I'm the son of Odin, and I'm the god of light. Yes, I'm the god of light and purity and beauty. And I was recently assassinated by my brother Hud. Obviously, you know, being kind of manipulated by Loki. But, you know, in a nutshell, yeah, that's me. What do you do?
Do not speak without my permission.
Well, I'm sorry there, love, but he did ask me a question. It was only polite to oblige.
Do not call me your love. I am not your love. You are my prisoner.
Okay, easy now, darling. Okay. Sorry I was rude? Well, either way there, my queen of all things living and dead and everything else in between. I'm considering about stretching my legs. You want anything from Tesco's?
Every single time we have guests over, you always want to go Tesco's. Why? Seriously, why do you always want to go? I'm done here.
That was kinda awkward. So new cat friend. Tesco's?
Oh, well, look at the time. I must be going.
Please, little cat, don't run away. Please. I don't know the directions.
Older. I want a foot rub.
Oh no, not again.
Dave the Viking Cat and the Boggart of the Longhouse. In the smoky warmth of a longhouse nestled in a fjord-side village, Dave the Viking Cat was trying something new. Cooking. It started when Bragi the Skald left out a bowl of milk by the hearth and muttered, "Don't touch it, Dave." Naturally, Dave took this as a challenge. By midday, he had burnt 3 pots of porridge, set fire to Eric's beard, only slightly, and seasoned a stew with fish bones and beard oil. Things began to go missing. First, Eagle Thorson's favorite throwing axe vanished. He blamed Dave, of course. Then, Bragi's drinking horn disappeared mid-saga, which caused a dramatic, poetic outburst involving 3 ravens, 2 trolls, and a curse of eternal thirst. Even Dave's own golden collar bell, a prized gift from a raid in Wessex, vanished from around his neck while he napped. And every time something went missing, Dave noticed a strange draft, a snicker in the shadows, and the faint scent of sheep dung. By the 3rd night, the longhouse was restless. The villagers muttered of a boggart, a mischievous spirit that haunted places of warmth, stealing trinkets, hiding tools, and untying shoelaces. Dave naturally was intrigued and offended. No spirit was going to out-thief him. So he hatched a plan. That night, Dave cooked again, badly. He tossed in fish guts, soot, goat hair, and one of Bragi's missing socks. He left the pot bubbling on the hearth and pretended to sleep nearby, tail twitching. At midnight, the smoke shifted. Out from the shadows slinked a creature, hunched and knobbly with glowing eyes and a sack slung over its shoulder, filled with all the missing objects. The boggart Dave sprang. Claws out! The sack burst open, axes, bowls, horns, and his golden bell flew across the room. The boggart shrieked, leapt into the rafters, and vanished in a puff of sheepy smoke. The next morning, the villagers found Dave asleep atop the sack, purring proudly. Every item returned, even Bragi's socks, though now smelling faintly of fish. From that day on, Dave was declared keeper of the hearth, feared by boggarts and bad stew alike. Though every now and then a spoon goes missing. And Dave just smiles the end of the tale.
Nothing like a little bit of grave digging. Well, grave digging with a purpose. I've heard there's gold around here. Here lies Ragnar Thorbritches. I wonder if he's famous. Egil Thorson, stay groovy. Never heard of him. Dread Pirate Pete, ye sunk regularly, but it were a puddle that got me. I hope that was a joke. Now, I see this giant mound over there, so I'm gonna guarantee that the gold's there somewhere. I hope nothing's lurking. Oh please, I hope nothing's lurking. Here we go, digging away. With no care in the world. So far, nothing's gone wrong. Oh, why did I open my mouth?
Tesco's has some great bargains. Tesco's.
Sorry, mate, I can't hear you. Could you speak up a bit?
At Tesco's. Buy 2 for 1 with Tesco's Club Card.
Oh gods, he's coming this way. Why did I always have to open my mouth? Why can't I be quiet?
Would you like assistance?
No, it's fine, it's fine. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. It's not a problem. I'll just go the other direction.
Madam, Sainsbury's can't beat us on price.
Now stay back, you. Stay back. I have a fire and I'm not afraid to use it.
Summer barbecues. You can buy 2 bags of charcoal for £5. Shop at
No, seriously. Could you just back off a little bit? Whoops! Excuse me, mate. I think your leg's on fire. Yeah, it's on fire.
Wait, can you smell burning? Oh, cripes, it's me.
Cool, it smells like someone's burning an overcoat. Yeek. I don't know if it's a bit too late, but I am very sorry. It was an accident. Is it an inappropriate time to say it's good time for marshmallows? Well, that was unfortunate. So many hills. Well, at least I've got the gold. Whee!
Stay groovy.
Dave the Viking Cat and the Flying Kitten. Dave the Viking Cat was once the fiercest furball in the fjords and a legendary spear thrower. One crisp morning, he padded out on a hunt with his tiny kitten, Camille, riding on his back in a tiny fur-lined pouch. Suddenly, ambush! A pack of rival warhounds leapt from the bushes. With yowls and howls, Dave dashed away, claws scraping stone, tail like a banner of defiance. But then, a roaring river blocked his path. too fast to swim across with little Camille. Think, Dave, think. With a warrior's yowl, he tied Camille to his finest fishbone javelin. Yes, fishbone, it's a Viking cat thing. Aimed across the surging stream and hurled her like a fluff-filled missile. Swish, thump, Camille landed safely on a mossy tuft. Without a moment's pause, Dave dove in, paws slicing the waves, and paddled like Odin himself was watching. Reunited on the far bank, he stood tall, soaked, but victorious. The stunned warhounds too baffled to chase. And from that day on, Kitten Camille became known as Skyclaw. The Ghost of Cathamar, Dave versus the Dead. A cartoon episode. In the misty fjords of Cathamar, villagers speak of a ghostly feline haunting the docks. Fish barrels are raided, ships mysteriously scratched, and eerie meows echo at night. The dockcaster, a grumpy old seer, insists, it's no spirit, it's mischief. Turns out he's right, it's Dave the Viking cat playing tricks again. But then, the skies darken. A massive rotting dragon corpse crashes into the bay, undead eyes glowing. Dave stiffens his fur. Eagle Thorson, berserker runecaster, draws his axe. A battle erupts on the docks. Wood splinters, runes flash, claws fly. But it doesn't end there. The dragon's corpse awakens the drowned dead. Skeletal Vikings rise from the sea. Jörmungandr, the world serpent, coils through the waves. Dave and Eagle leap aboard a longship. A sea battle begins under thunder and flame. Just when all seems lost, Bragi Magnarsson the Skald and Eirik Rickardsson arrive with a fleet of fearless warriors, their sails blood red. Among them, a mysterious red-bearded warrior, his hammer crackling with lightning. Thor himself. With a mighty roar, Thor smashes the serpent. Dave pounces the dragon's skull. The undead sink back into the abyss. Victory. The Vikings return to Cathamar. Mead flows, stories roar. Dave drinks Thor almost under the table. You fight well, cat, says Thor, raising his horn. Dave the Viking cat, and the great Mead Hall menace. Long ago, in the mead-soaked lands of Midgard, there lived a most unusual warrior, Dave the Viking cat. Now, Dave was no larger than a loaf of bread and far too fluffy to swing a proper axe. The other warriors laughed when he tried to raid anything bigger than a rat. But Dave had the heart of a berserker and the courage of a skaldic saga. One day, his human, old skald Bragi, said, Dave, if you're not gonna raid cows, then go raid glory. Head to the great city of Kattegat and learn the ways of the warrior. Bragi gave him a hollowed-out drinking horn for a longship, 2 fish bones for oars, and a sewing needle forged in Odin's name as his sword. Dave set sail, well, floated downstream, past howling wolves and river trolls. At one point, a toad the size of a longhouse tried to eat him, but Dave jabbed it in the nose and rode on like a thunder god on espresso. When he reached Kattegat, the city was silent. Mead halls were boarded up, goats were hiding in barrels, and no one dared speak above a whisper. What's going on? Meowed Dave. A giant, said a trembling baker. He stomps through town every day, stealing ale and scaring children. Dave narrowed his glowing yellow eyes. Not on my watch. He marched straight to the town square, needle sword in paw, tail held high. The giant roared, thinking Dave a snack. But Dave was quick, leaping between the brute's legs, scrambling up his tunic and stabbing him with the fury of Freya's own whiskers. Pinprick by pinprick, Dave wore the giant down. Finally, the monster groaned, spun, and collapsed into a cabbage cart. The townsfolk erupted in cheers. Hail, Dave the Mighty! Dave the Fearless! Dave the Cat! Who fights like 100 men! Dave licked his paw modestly and said, It's not the size of the cat in the raid. It's the size of the raid and the cat. And from that day forth, songs were sung of the tiny Viking cat who bested a giant with nothing but courage, claws, and a very pointy needle.
Dave the Norse Viking cat and the Kraken of Codfjord fantasy comedy adventure set in the 9th century Norse seas, blending historical Viking culture with whimsical fantasy elements. Chapter 1.
Of cats and crews. In the land of frost and fjords, where longships slice through icy waters and mead flows like rivers, there was a cat. Not just any cat. Dave, a fierce, one-eyed feline with a battle-scarred ear and a nose for trouble. He was the terror of tavern rats, the scourge of skaldic poetry readings, and most importantly, the self-proclaimed captain of the longship Whiskerwind. With the wind in his fur and vengeance in his heart, nobody quite knows why, Dave had assembled a crew of the mightiest, weirdest, and most questionably sane adventurers in the north. Eirik the Warrior. Broad-shouldered and broader-skulled, he wielded not 1 but 12 axes and couldn't remember where he left half of them. Bragi the Skald, a wandering poet whose rhymes were so powerful they could put a troll to sleep or to rage. Egil Thorson, a berserker runecaster who read ancient spells while screaming battle cries. Most of his runes were carved into fish bones. Sigurd the Nutty Squirrel, a talking, possibly divine squirrel who may or may not be Loki in disguise. He was addicted to fermented hazelnuts. Grimelv the Wizard, an elderly sorceress with a beard longer than her staff, who claimed she once turned a whole monastery into frogs for the aesthetic. Fred and Ted, dwarven twin blacksmiths, one of whom, nobody would say who, had a violent cat allergy. With this illustrious crew gathered aboard the Whiskerwind, Dave stood at the prow, tail held high. "Sail to Saxon lands," he yowled, "for glory, gold, and questionable plunder." But just as the crew started singing off-key sea shanties and Bragi began composing the ballad of Dave's mighty paw, a dark shadow stirred beneath the sea. Chapter 2. The Kraken Cometh. They reached the treacherous waters of Codfjord, a place known in saga and drunken tale as the lair of the Kraken, a beast of legend with tentacles like tree trunks and a smell like fermented herring. Suddenly, the sea went still, the wind died. Sigurd dropped his fermented hazelnut and squeaked, "I smell calamari!" With a thunderous splash, the Kraken erupted from the depths, eyes glowing like cursed lanterns, tentacles flailing in every direction. Dave narrowed his eye. "Battle stations! Fred, Ted, man the harpoons, Egil. Cast a rune or scream something useful." Fred sneezed violently. "I told you, I'm allergic." "I'm Ted, you daft hairball," screamed the other. "Same difference." "Harpoon now, sneeze later," yelled Dave. Eric threw 5 axes before realizing he hadn't aimed. Bragi tried reciting a poem, which caused one of the Kraken's tentacles to writhe in what might have been pain or awkward embarrassment. Egil carved a rune that summoned lightning, but also turned his beard blue. "I regret nothing," he bellowed. Grimelv raised her arms, uttered a spell in ancient Norrish, and the Kraken suddenly froze. Not dead, not banished, turned into a giant flailing cod. The crew cheered. Dave licked his paw and nonchalantly said, "Dinner's sorted." Chapter 3. Towards Saxon Shores. With the Kraken of Codfjord now flopping uselessly on the deck and Sigurd trying to teach it to juggle, the Whiskerwind continued its journey south. They would soon raid Saxon lands, but first they'd celebrate their victory with mead, fried cod, and increasingly exaggerated retellings of how Dave defeated the Kraken with a single swipe. Bragi already had a chorus. He's got claws of iron, a tail like a flail. He stared down a Kraken and made it wail. Dave purred from his throne, a stolen Saxon helmet, and muttered, "This is only the beginning." Dave the Viking Cat and the Labyrinth of Matlock Bath. Set in the 9th century. In the age of raiders and runes, of longships and legends, there lived a most peculiar warrior. A cat. But not just any cat. This was Dave the Viking Cat. Fur streaked with ash and soot from countless fires, claws like little sea axes, and eyes sharp as a hawk's. He prowled the halls of chieftains, drank spilled mead, and yowled louder than the Skalds. One moonlit night, as embers crackled and the stars wheeled overhead, Dave dozed upon a bearskin rug when he overheard a trader speak of a lost labyrinth buried deep beneath the misty hills of Matlock Bath, a mystical valley in the wild lands of Derbyshire. Gold beyond imagining, enchanted relics, and forgotten magic were said to lie within. Dave's tail flicked. Adventure stirred in his feline soul. Chapter 1. The Fellowship of Fur and Fury. Dave's first stop was Northworthy, now known as Derby, to recruit a few unusual allies. Egil Thorson, a grizzled berserker with rune tattoos and wild eyes, who longed for a magical rune set to unlock secrets of the gods. Bragi Magnarsson, a skald with a tongue like silver and a beard like tangled wool, who dreamed of a lai harp that could charm the dead. Njal Sigmundsson, who lived in a smoky longhouse where sheep wandered freely indoors. He sought a magical sheep that could predict the weather, maybe even fate itself. Lastly, Tyrkir Thorkelson, a swift-footed scout who had worn out 30 pairs of boots. He wanted magical Viking boots that never wore down and made him faster than a hare on hot coals. Together they formed an odd company: berserker, skald, seer, scout, and a talking, sword-wearing cat. Chapter 2. Bandits and Beards. As they marched southward through dales and forested paths, the fellowship found the woods thick with shadow and the scent of damp earth. Birds fell silent, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. From behind mossy rocks and twisted trunks leapt their ambushers, dirty bearded men with rusty blades, yellowed teeth, and breath that could sour mead. "Stand and deliver!" one of them croaked, waving a bent sword. He clearly hadn't bathed since last Yuletide. Before another threat could be uttered, Dave, the Viking cat, shot forward like a silver streak. He slashed at eyes, tore at trousers, and unfastened belts with surgical precision, leaving stunned bandits scrambling to hold up their breeches. Egil Thorson roared like thunder from the mountain gods. His axe spun in a deadly arc, felling 2 men before they could raise their shields. Blood splashed like wine at a feast, and limbs scattered like thrown bones. Tyrkir moved with the grace of a hunting falcon, spear darting like a serpent's tongue. One bandit fell with a cry, clutching his gut. Another turned to flee, but caught the butt of the spear in the back of his skull. Njal, still munching on a honey oat cake, merely pointed. His prized sheep, Griselda, barreled forward and sank her teeth into a robber's shin with surprising enthusiasm. The man howled, hopping on one leg as Griselda shook her head like a wolf with a rat. The battle was brief, brutal, and almost comical. In minutes, the path was littered with groaning, beltless brigands, their pride wounded more than their bodies. Without a word, the company pressed onward, leaving behind the wreckage and humiliation. They climbed steadily toward the brooding heights of Matlock, where the land grew steep and silent. Mists coiled between crags like the breath of old spirits, and the wind whispered secrets in a tongue only the stones could understand. Adventure had only just begun. Would you like me to continue enhancing the next chapters in a similar tone? Hapter, tourist bandits and beards. As they marched southward through dales and forested paths, the fellowship found the woods thick with shadow and the scent of damp earth. Birds fell silent, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. From behind mossy rocks and twisted trunks leapt their ambushers, dirty bearded men with rusty blades, yellowed teeth, and breath that could sour mead. "Stand and deliver!" one of them croaked, waving a bent sword. He clearly hadn't bathed since last Yuletide. Before another threat could be uttered, Dave, the Viking cat, shot forward like a silver streak. He slashed at eyes, tore at trousers, and unfastened belts with surgical precision, leaving stunned bandits scrambling to hold up their breeches. Egil Thorson roared like thunder from the mountain gods. His axe spun in a deadly arc, felling 2 men before they could raise their shields. Blood splashed like wine at a feast, and limbs scattered like thrown bones. Tyrkir moved with the grace of a hunting falcon, spear darting like a serpent's tongue. One bandit fell with a cry, clutching his gut. Another turned to flee, but caught the butt of the spear in the back of his skull. Njal, still munching on a honey oat cake, merely pointed. His prized sheep, Griselda, barreled forward and sank her teeth into a robber's shin with surprising enthusiasm. The man howled, hopping on one leg as Griselda shook her head like a wolf with a rat. The battle was brief, brutal, and almost comical. In minutes, the path was littered with groaning, beltless brigands, their pride wounded more than their bodies. Without a word, the company pressed onward, leaving behind the wreckage and humiliation. They climbed steadily toward the brooding heights of Matlock, where the land grew steep and silent. Mists coiled between crags like the breath of old spirits, and the wind whispered secrets in a tongue only the stones could understand. Adventure had only just begun.
Chapter 3. The Stranger and the Mine, and Dave the Viking Cat story. At the edge of the cliffs, where winds howled like wolves mourning the moon, the path narrowed to a crumbling ledge.
Fog rolled in from the depths, and the trees thinned until only ancient stumps remained, gnarled like the knuckles of forgotten giants. There, in the half-light of dusk, stood a hooded stranger. His cloak fluttered like raven wings. A long white beard spilled down his chest, braided with bits of bone and crystal. His eyes, sharp and unblinking, glinted like moonlit steel. "You seek the lost," he rasped, voice dry as old parchment. "Then follow the old ore trail, to the Good Luck Mine." He paused, staring each of them down in turn, even Dave, who returned the gaze with feline suspicion. "But beware!" the stranger hissed, leaning in close enough for them to smell the scent of pipeweed and ancient moss. All who enter, few return. Then, without another word, he vanished, not by turning nor by walking, but in a slow, curling swirl of blue-gray smoke. One moment there, the next, only air and mystery remained. Dave padded forward, sniffed the spot where the man had stood, and sneezed. "Pipeweed," muttered Bragi, "and old magic." Egil frowned. I don't like magic that smells like someone's uncle. But forward they went, following the stranger's warning like a whisper in the dark. The old ore trail twisted downward, half hidden under moss and thyme, leading them toward a place few dared speak of. The Good Luck Mine. Chapter 4, Into the Darkness cartoon. The mine gaped open like the maw of a stone giant. Shadows danced. Then came the clicking. The skittering giant spiders, thick as horses, descended from the ceiling. Dave yowled and leapt from web to web, clawing at bulbous eyes. Bragi bashed one with his lute. Egil crushed another with a rune-carved hammer. Turkir spun and stabbed like a windmill gone mad. Njal's sheep weirdly bleated once, and a spider dropped dead from fear. They pressed deeper until they reached a stone door covered in runes. No handle, no keyhole. Only music would open it. Bragi stepped forward, strummed a trembling chord, and sang, "Stone be not still, let legends awake, open the path for Midgard's sake. By harp and claw, by voice and steel, let this door now turn its wheel." The door groaned, then opened. Chapter 5, The Labyrinth of Legends. Inside was a maze of madness, trolls that drooled acid, serpents big as trees, pits that whispered lies. Egil cast runes in the air to find safe paths. Njal's sheep would refuse to walk toward danger, and once even saved Bragi from stepping on a cursed tile. Then they faced One-Eye Wilfred, a landlocked undead pirate, skeletal hand gripping a rotting cutlass. His voice was salt and shadow. "You'll not take me treasure, ye flea-bitten fiends?" They fought on a bridge above boiling tar. Dave leapt and scratched at Wilfred's single eye. Bragi's harp sent ghostly waves through the air. Eagle's axe split bone. At last, Wilfred fell, his skull rolling into the abyss with a rattling curse. Chapter 6, The Chamber of Wishes. They entered the final chamber, glowing with ancient gold, scattered gems, and relics of old. Each adventurer's heart beat with longing. Egil found his rune set, glowing with Odin's wisdom. Bragi lifted the Lai harp, its strings humming with forgotten songs. Njal cradled a magical sheep, with wool like clouds and glowing eyes. Turkir pulled on the boots of Scotty and instantly vanished from sight, only to appear behind them a second later. In Dave, he found a golden fish, shaped like a cat. He blinked. Behind a tapestry, they found a hidden tunnel, crawling out into the cellar of a mead hall. Barrels everywhere, laughter overhead. Njal sighed. "I think I've finally found a home," he said, petting his sheep. Epilogue. Dave yawned, curled in the warm firelight of the hearth. It had all been a dream, or had it? For at his paws lay a small gleaming fish, shaped like a cat, and it purred. Dave the Viking cat and the moonflower of the Alps. High in the misty Alps, where the snow clings like dragon's breath and stars whisper old secrets, padded a small fuzzy legend, Dave the Viking cat. Not just any cat, Dave was a skald, a sailor, and a sniffer of secrets. His whiskers twitched with tales untold. One winter's night, curled beneath a goat hide by the fire, Dave gazed at the moon and sighed. "I wonder," he purred, "if the moon smells like fish. Or cheese, or maybe dreams?" And so, as cats are prone to doing when left alone with wonder, Dave packed his tiny satchel, with smoked salmon, a rune stone, and a spare sock he'd stolen from Bragi, and set off, not north, not west, but up. Up through winding alpine passes, past frost giants frozen in stone, led only by the glint of the moon and the occasional nudge of Odin's ravens. At the edge of the world, where snow becomes starlight, Dave found a hidden valley shimmering with moonlight. There he purred in awe stood Alfheim, the land of elves. The moon itself hung low like a giant saucer of cream, and beneath it danced a maiden, light-footed and silver-haired, daughter of the Moon King. She smelled of snowdrops and ancient lullabies. She looked at Dave and smiled. "You're not an elf," she said. "No," said Dave, puffing up a little. "I'm Dave Explorer, napper, slayer of mice." They danced through the dreamlight, shared stories and snacks, and though cats don't easily fall in love, Dave's heart did a little backflip. But Alfheim, like dreams and yarn, slips away at dawn. "I must go," Dave meowed. The Moon Maiden nodded and gave him a gift, a single blossom glowing like the moon's eye. "Take this, little warrior, a piece of our world for yours." Dave returned to Midgard, the Alps now softer beneath his paws. He planted the flower atop the highest peak, and from then on, every spring the moonflowers bloom, delicate, luminous, and whispering of starlight and dancing. They say if you find one, sleep beside it, and dream of Alfheim, Dave might just curl up next to you, watching, purring, and perhaps planning his next great adventure. Dave the Viking Cat versus the Saxon Sheep Sorcerers, a humorous, action-packed, and magical short story in the fantasy comedy style of your Dave the Viking Cat series. Dave the Viking Cat versus the Saxon Sheep Sorcerers, a tale of fluff, fury, and forbidden woodcraft. It began, as many ridiculous things do, with a missing sausage. Dave the Viking Cat, mighty hunter, cunning strategist, and part-time nap enthusiast, was sunning himself on the roof of Bragi's longhouse when he detected an unforgivable absence. The spicy, smoked sausage he'd buried beneath the furs last night was gone. And not just gone. Gone. With hoof prints. Opter 1, the cloven-hoofed conspiracy. Dave sprang into action, tail lashing like the sails of a longship in a gale. He followed the tracks out of the village of Catafjord, across the misty moors, and deep into the heart of Saxon lands, where things got woolly, literally. Atop a windswept hill stood a ring of ancient standing stones, guarded by hooded sheep, each with a staff clutched in their hooves and runes bleeding with dark power. "Saxon sheep sorcerers!" Dave hissed, ears flattened. "I knew the wool cult survived!" The leader, a massive ram in a tattered robe, stepped forward. His fleece glowed faintly with eldritch embroidery. "Bartholomew welcomes you, feline interloper," the ram intoned. "We have your sausage and your destiny." Chapter 2, The Curse of the Golden Fleece Ball. Bartholomew raised his staff and chanted in Old Ba-Runic. Lightning cracked, wool bristled. Dave's claws unsheathed instinctively. "We know your secret, Cat of the North," said another sorcerer sheep. "You are the guardian of the 9 sausages of Sagaheim. Surrender your whiskers and we'll spare your tail." "Try it, Woolface," Dave growled, eyes glowing green. "I didn't battle a frost drake in a privy just to get fleeced by fluff wizards." With that, he launched into battle, fur flying, claws slashing, and insults sharper than his fangs. Chapter 3, Wool and War Cries. Spells and sparks lit the sky as Dave dodged enchanted sheep pellets and kicked a runestone over with one mighty paw. He called upon his ancestors, summoning the ghost of Olaf Hairbalson, a legendary Viking warcat with a battle yowl so fierce it once cracked a goat's horn. Together they fought back the flock. Bragi the Skald appeared at the last minute on a stolen pony, singing badly and throwing fermented turnips. Egil the Berserker Runecaster arrived shirtless and covered in butter, yelling something about Viking honor and lactose vengeance. In the chaos, Dave snatched back the sausage and bit it triumphantly. Tastes of victory and sheep fear. Chapter 4, The Unraveling. As the Saxon sheep sorcerers fled into the mist, their wool robes unspooling behind them, Bartholomew turned and cursed Dave. "You may have won today, feline fiend, but mark our ba bleats." Dave licked a paw and shrugged. "Get in line, so will the badgers." And the cabbage druids. Epilogue. Back to the longhouse. Back in Catafjord, Dave curled up beside the hearth with his sausage, purring like a thunderstorm. Bragi raised a mug. "What news, Dave?" "Nothing much," Dave yawned. "Just beat a cult of spellcasting Saxon sheep and saved the realms from woolly doom." Bragi blinked. "Should I write a saga?" Dave flicked his tail. "Only if it rhymes and makes me look cooler than Eagle." The end, coming soon. Dave the Viking Cat and the Were-Seagulls of Lindisfarne. Dave the Viking Cat, Through the Stone of Stars, a Deep Space Nine crossover. It was a stormy evening in 9th century Scandinavia. Lightning cracked across the sky as Dave the Viking Cat, mighty warrior and occasional mischief maker, prowled the sacred hill of Runefell Crag, where legends spoke of a magic stone portal built by the gods. Dave sniffed the air. Thunder. Ozone, and something weirdly metallic. Suddenly, the ancient runestone hummed to life, glowing with an eerie blue light. A bolt of lightning struck it, and with a loud bzzz zap, the stone ripped open a swirling portal of light and stars. Either I've been sniffing too much fermented salmon, or this is an adventure, Dave muttered, gripping his tiny rune-carved hammer in his paw. Without hesitation, he leapt through the portal and instantly vanished. Deep Space Nine, 24th century alarms beeped. A ripple of energy surged through the Bajoran wormhole, and suddenly a furry blur of fur and fury appeared on the promenade. "Emerging life forms in Sector 12, barked the computer. Security officers rushed in, phasers drawn, only to find a confused-looking Viking cat in a helmet, cloak, and miniature sword, meowing indignantly while batting at a food replicator. "What in the name of Kales?" muttered Lieutenant Worf, raising an eyebrow. "Captain Sisko," said Major Kira, staring at the monitor, "we have a visitor. A small one, very angry, possibly Norse." The Viking cat in the 24th century Dr. Bashir tried to scan him. The tricorder exploded in a puff of smoke. Odo tried to put him in a containment field. Dave promptly escaped by batting the controls with his hammer. "Where am I?" Dave demanded, meowing in Old Norse. Luckily, Jadzia Dax, being a science officer with hundreds of years of memories, understood enough to reply. "You've traveled through time and space via a quantum rune anomaly. You're aboard Deep Space Nine, far beyond Midgard." Dave blinked. "This isn't Valhalla?" "No, but we do have Klingons. Close enough." A plan to return together. Chief O'Brien and Dax studied the readings from Dave's enchanted hammer, which crackled with ancient energy. They discovered it was resonating with the transporter's quantum buffer, and if calibrated just right, they could reverse the temporal spatial portal. "Think of it like slingshotting a cat back through a magic wormhole using 24th century tech," O'Brien said, shrugging. "Sounds like every Tuesday around here," muttered Quark. The finale, Cat versus Chrono Chaos. But just as they were ready to beam Dave home, a strange distortion echoed through the wormhole, a time wraith creature drawn to the hammer's power. It surged into the station, snarling with void energy. Dave leapt into action. "Hold my fish!" he yowled, summoning a bolt of ancient Norse lightning through his hammer. With a crack and a zap, Dave smacked the wraith back into the wormhole with the kind of force that made even Worf slow clap. Home again. With stories to tell. With the rift stabilized, Dave stood on the transporter pad, giving a dignified flick of his tail. "You've been an unusual guest," Captain Sisko said, grinning. Dave gave a nod. "If you ever need a cat with a hammer, you know where to find me." With a final burst of light and science magic, Dave vanished, reappearing moments later in the 9th century atop Runefell Crag, mid-thunderstorm. Njal the sheep farmer was waiting. "You were gone 10 minutes. Where'd you go?" Dave just purred and said, "You wouldn't believe me if I told you." Thus ends the saga of Dave the Viking Cat and the Stone of Stars. But remember, somewhere beyond the wormhole, a tricorder still buzzes with faint meows. Dave the Viking Cat, Through the Stone of Stars, a Deep Space Nine crossover. It was a stormy evening in 9th century Scandinavia. Lightning cracked across the sky as Dave the Viking Cat, mighty warrior and occasional mischief maker, prowled the sacred hill of Runefell Crag, where legends spoke of a magic stone portal built by the gods. Dave sniffed the air. Thunder. Ozone, and something weirdly metallic. Suddenly, the ancient runestone hummed to life, glowing with an eerie blue light. A bolt of lightning struck it, and with a loud bzzz zap, the stone ripped open a swirling portal of light and stars. Either I've been sniffing too much fermented salmon, or this is an adventure, Dave muttered, gripping his tiny rune-carved hammer in his paw. Without hesitation, he leapt through the portal and instantly vanished. Deep Space Nine, 24th century alarms beeped. A ripple of energy surged through the Bajoran wormhole, and suddenly a furry blur of fur and fury appeared on the promenade. "Emerging life forms in Sector 12, barked the computer. Security officers rushed in, phasers drawn, only to find a confused-looking Viking cat in a helmet, cloak, and miniature sword, meowing indignantly while batting at a food replicator. "What in the name of Kales?" muttered Lieutenant Worf, raising an eyebrow. "Captain Sisko," said Major Kira, staring at the monitor, "we have a visitor. A small one, very angry, possibly Norse." The Viking cat in the 24th century Dr. Bashir tried to scan him. The tricorder exploded in a puff of smoke. Odo tried to put him in a containment field. Dave promptly escaped by batting the controls with his hammer. "Where am I?" Dave demanded, meowing in Old Norse. Luckily, Jadzia Dax, being a science officer with hundreds of years of memories, understood enough to reply. You've traveled through time and space via a quantum rune anomaly. You're aboard Deep Space Nine, far beyond Midgard. Dave blinked. This isn't Valhalla? No, but we do have Klingons. Close enough. A plan to return together. Chief O'Brien and Dax studied the readings from Dave's enchanted hammer, which crackled with ancient energy. They discovered it was resonating with the transporter's quantum buffer, and if calibrated just right, they could reverse the temporal spatial portal. Think of it like slingshotting a cat back through a magic wormhole using 24th century tech, O'Brien said, shrugging. Sounds like every Tuesday around here, muttered Quark. The finale, Cat versus Chrono Chaos. But just as they were ready to beam Dave home, a strange distortion echoed through the wormhole, a time wraith creature drawn to the hammer's power. It surged into the station, snarling with void energy. Dave leapt into action. Hold my fish! He yowled, summoning a bolt of ancient Norse lightning through his hammer. With a crack and a zap, Dave smacked the wraith back into the wormhole with the kind of force that made even Worf slow clap. Home again. With stories to tell. With the rift stabilized, Dave stood on the transporter pad, giving a dignified flick of his tail. You've been an unusual guest, Captain Sisko said, grinning. Dave gave a nod. If you ever need a cat with a hammer, you know where to find me. With a final burst of light and science magic, Dave vanished, reappearing moments later in the 9th century atop Runefell Crag, mid-thunderstorm. Njal the sheep farmer was waiting. You were gone 10 minutes. Where'd you go? Dave just purred and said, You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Thus ends the saga of Dave the Viking Cat and the Stone of Stars. But remember, somewhere beyond the wormhole, a tricorder still buzzes with faint meows.